Good afternoon, Mr. Mchaka Brian and my colleague Faith. This is Toko Robert from Rubaga campus. I shall be discussing about or presenting to our 3D printing assignment. In my group, we're supposed to be two. There's a lady who's called Majori. She's supposed to be part of me, but due to financial problems, left the course. So I've been alone in my group. Uh, as a group from Rubaga, they decided to give me one colleague to have my presentation. That's Faith. So in all the presentation which I shall be doing, she will be there like part of me. So in my group members we on okay. In my group we're now two instead of majority. Now I have Faith. So I'm going to start by question number one. Question number one says that what's a 3D printing? According to our research, 3D printing is a method of creating a three-dimensional object layer by layer using a computer created design. Now, for us to implement the 3D printing, there are some key softwares which we always look at. The first one of the softwares which we can use to come up with our designs for 3D is called, we can either use Adobe Illustrator or we can use AutoCAD, uh, AutoCAD, which has so many different versions, but all of them can work for us to come up with our designs for the 3D. Then the next question says, which is in slide number 3. The next question says that we're supposed to give a brief background of a 3D. Due to time factor, I'm not going to speak lengthy. Unless if it was a class presentation where our colleagues are there, they could ask questions, then we could respond. But now, since they're not there, we're going to make it a bit brief. Maybe in case of any doubt, I think you will help and get back to us and we shall explain more. Here I'm supposed to talk about a brief background of a 3D printing from the PowerPoint slide here. The earliest talk of producing 3D dimensional objects through additive layering goes back to the 1970s. If not, it was all earlier. But it wasn't until 1981 that the first 3D printing patent was awarded to Hideo Kodama of Japan in 1981. Kodama had invented a device which used a UV light to harden the protoreactive polymers. Like other early forms of additive manufacturing, the idea was that the technology would be useful for creating models and prototypes. The next slide talks about, we're supposed to discuss about the general principles of 3D printing. There are some key principles which we always look at when we are doing 3D printing. One of them is that reduction of cost associated with 3D printing. This principle always talks about like when you're going to do a 3D printing, you must always look at the cost or the materials which you're going to put when you're going to do the 3D printing. It must always not be a material which is so expensive so that at the end of the day you can make a profit. Then the next point talks about no assembly is required. Like for scenarios, for instances, when you're making a 3D printing, when you're doing a 3D printing, you must always make sure all the pieces, all the objects which you're going to design, or which you're going to print, they must be assembled at the same time. Not that maybe after printing you're supposed to take them somewhere and then there's supposed to be some people who are supposed to assemble them. No. Then ability to print on demand. When we're printing 3D, when you're doing a 3D printing, we must always print when there is a demand. Just for example, let's assume that Faith has a phone and the back cover of the phone has got broken. What is supposed to do is supposed to go to those people who do the 3D printing and give to them the dimensions or the measurements for the back cover of the phone, and those people print when Cyril needs uh, the back cover of the half phone. Then there's what we call portable manufacturing. Whatever you have done, whatever you've printed in 3D printing, it must be portable. Somebody can carry it from one place to another. Lastly, precise physical replacement. Whatever you're going to print in the 3D, it must always be very, very easy to replace. Let's go to the next point, to the next question. The next question talks about we're supposed to give a description of these 3D printing processes. The, the first step which you're supposed to do when you want to have a 3D printing done, you're supposed to create or find a design. Before you go further in 3D printing, you must always come up with the design, or you must also always find a design. For example, like when you want to come up with a 3D printing object, you must always first design. And the softwares which you can use for design these designs can be, one of them can be Adobe Illustrator, or you can also use Photoshop, such kind of those softwares which you always use for graphic designing. Then there's also the next step is that after designing, you're supposed to export the STL file. Now, these STL files are the files which can be understood by the 3D printers, such that when you want to print, it will be able to read. If you're going to if you're going to have a different file type, it may not be read. It may not be read by the printer. And then thirdly, we're supposed to choose right materials. Now, for example, like when you're going to make something which is plastic, it can't make any sense for you to choose a material which is metallic. Then lastly, you're supposed to choose your parameters. Now, these parameters, here we are talking about the size, how big or how large uh, the object you're going to print in the 3D printing is supposed to be. Then lastly, we're supposed to create the G code. Now, this G code here, what happens? This G code is the code which can be understood by the printer when you're going to do printing. So the last point is that we're supposed to print. Now, after following all those steps, you're supposed to do the printing of the final copy. Now, there's also this part of the question. This is my last slide. This is my last slide, is it? Just a moment, Yeah, this is my last slide. It talks about applications of 3D printing. Now, applications of 3D printing, here what we understood as a group, here we are supposed to look at the areas or in the environments where we can use the 3D printing. Here we looked at education, and now in education, you find that in most of the schools, people, the colleges and universities, even the secondary institutes, they always teach the students how to use the 3D printing and how they can always implement it when they've left the school. For example, the 3D, the best example which we can have here is that you find that in nursery schools we have uh, we have in nursery schools we have 3D printing of we have the 3D objects whereby those young girls or the kids always use for playing at school. Then we also have prototyping and the manufacturing. 3D is also used in the manufacturing and prototyping. Then we also have what we call medicine. We can also use 3D in medicine, whereby we can make a metallic, whereby we can produce metallic orthopedic implants, which can be used in the human body, and later on they can even grow, because we always use materials which are a bit rough, like a bone. Then we also have construction. It can also be used in art and it can also be used in art and jewelry. Um, I think I will, due to time factor, I think I will beg to stop here. I invite my colleague to take us to Faith. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toko, for the nice presentation we've just had. I'm going to be taking us through the remaining slides, that is slides 7, 8, 9, and 10. Whereby my question says discuss the legal aspects of 3D printing, and in this I'll be talking about the following points: intellectual property rights and product liability. So before I discuss about the 2 points we have, I would love to first introduce what Lego means. Basically, Lego alone means having an ownership is an ownership or possessor. Law basically it means law applied to a person in possession of documents required for production of evidence in a court of law. Therefore, our first point says that intellectual property rights, whereby we are saying that the number nowadays the number of legal problems that many people in this field intellectual property are concerned with is that 3D printing may provide a new avenue for piracy. And when I talk of piracy means the unauthorized use of reproduction of another work. This means that someone can go ahead and do download a 3D model of the internet to create the same product with the exact dimensions that you have. That's what meant by the intellectual property rights. And then I'll go ahead and also talk about this one called the product liability. With the product liability, here we are saying that before 3D printing, the supply chain process was pretty simple. But some of the company designs and manufacturers' products may come up to take care of logistics and distribution, and the product is bought by a consumer. This is what we meant by the product liability. And I'll go ahead and discuss with you the next slide. Toko, kindly go to the next slide.
If look at the time remaining up there so that you can listen.
Sorry?
We're left with 6 minutes for the Zoom to shut down. So.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let me be brief. So the other one, so we went ahead and discussed about this next question is whereby they say we describe the health and safety of the 3D printing, there whereby we came up with the points like the be aware of toxic fumes from materials, whereby here 3D printers release some vapors into air when using polyastic acid. So here we have to be aware of the toxic fumes that come out of these materials. We also have avoid electric shocks. Here we all know that electric shocks are among the safety concerns when using 3D printers, so we should all be aware of that. The other one is also watch out for scraper blades. Scraper blades, we mean they avoid the sharp applying excess to remove the finished 3D prints. There's also avoid pinch point injuries from moving parts. Here we say if you are wishful of your 3D printers, mechanical movements in the 3D dimension space like the Y, the XYZ, you are likely to experience the pinch point injuries. There are quite many points can go out because I'm left with a little time. We can go ahead and just outline them. The more information is in our document. We have the washout for burn risk from heated parts, adhere to the standard safety guidelines, minimize risk of fire, and so on. So my other slide is the impact of 3D printing. We are looking at the impact of the 3D printing, whereby we say the flexibility, rapid prototyping, print on demand, strong and light. All these are the points we came up with. And the flexibility design, we say that the 3D printing allows for the design and print out of more complex designs than traditional manufacturers processes. Then the rapid prototyping, 3D printing can manufacture parts within hours, which speeds up the prototyping process. The print on demand is another advantage. All these are the advantages we came up with after looking at all what 3D printing is. It also prints on demand, which is another advantage. It doesn't need a lot of space to stock inventory. We also have we have 3D printing materials used is plastic. Although some metals can also be used for 3D printing, we can also offer advantages. They are lighter than their metal equipments. Then they are fast and productive.
Hello.
Sorry about that. My network. Yes. Sorry about that. My network had gone off. But I was already finalizing with types of 3D printing. Among the types of 3D printing, we have the fuse deposition modeling, whereby the material exclusion devices are the most commonly available and affordable types of 3D printing, whereby the question was saying that which one would you choose for your company? So for us, in our group, we come up with the fuse deposition modeling. We come up with the stereotyping we are looking at as what we can choose for our company's digital light processing, whereby when you look at digital light processing, these are printers that almost are the same as the LSA, the SLA. And also we have mask stereotype, the mic stereo one, and also we have this one. The ray is its light source shining. It has the UV light through an LCD screen displaying a single layer slide as a mask. Therefore, sir, please, we have come to the end of our presentation due to the little time we have. Thanks so much for listening. This has been Toko Robert and Faith Kuyashwin presenting from Rubaga Campus, Group 1. Thank you so much.
Okay, Faith, thank you very much for that nice presentation. I think we are going to stop here. Let me save our work.